Hi, everyone. Just giving everyone a few minutes to get logged in and settled. If you can see the presentation, we do have a pre-workshop survey that would be super helpful if you could take that. Also, my name is Chrissy Meek. I'll be facilitating today. I believe that you have to put my name in the survey when you complete that survey. So if you'll just take a moment to do the pre-workshop survey, that would be super helpful. Thank you. And we'll just give everyone a couple of minutes to get logged in. Just give everyone a couple more minutes to get logged in and settled. And again, please just take the pre-workshop survey if you have a second. All righty. So it's about 5:05. So I'm hoping that we have everyone who is planning on joining us today, but I will try and keep an eye on our participant list and let people in as they see them in the waiting room. But it is just me today, so hopefully I'll be able to catch that. But anywho, my name is Chrissy Meek, and I'm going to be your facilitator today for the Smart Start Salary Negotiation Workshop. And I am one of the career consultants at TWU. I work primarily with the College of Nursing and College of Professional Education, but I can certainly help you with all kinds of different things, no matter what your major is. But yeah, so today I'll be your facilitator, and I'm just going to go ahead and jump right in. But also just want to let everyone know that if you do have questions during the presentation, you can put them into the chat box, and I will try and save a few minutes near the end to make sure that I attend to any questions that we might have. And then I'll also give some space for you to unmute and speak up and speak questions if you'd prefer to ask your questions that way. But without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. So welcome very much. Welcome to everyone who's participating today. Very much appreciate you being here. So I've already mentioned who I am. I'm a career consultant with TWU. I'm also a student, a PhD student in counseling psychology here at TWU. I'm definitely deeply passionate about our feminist values at the university and the education that we provide here for our students based in feminist values. This workshop is designed to empower you to successfully and confidently negotiate your salary and benefits, and to make sure your compensation is aligned with your worth and your market value. Whether you're negotiating a salary for a new job or for a promotion or a raise, your purpose here is to be highly objective, persuasive, and a strategic negotiator. So that's going to be our main goal for today. But one of the first things we need to do before we get started is we have to download the digital workbook. This is something that's going to help you keep track of what I cover in the slides, and it's also something that you can refer back to after the presentation if you want to review any of the material that we covered today. So I'll just give everyone a few minutes to go to this link here and download their workbook. Also, just want to let everyone know if you're having any sort of issues getting the workbook downloaded, I will type my email into the chat box, and if you had trouble getting the workbook downloaded, I can email it to you after the presentation. Just send me a short email saying that you would like access to the workbook, and I'd be happy to send that to you. And I will put in my email right now. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and move on. So I just want to tell you a little bit about the American Association of University Women and kind of one of the reasons or some of the reasons that they have organized this presentation that I'm putting on for you all today. So it's the American Association of University Women is one of the oldest women's organizations in the country. Since 1881, they have been a catalyst for positive change, from boosting young women's access to education to shaping public policy and producing groundbreaking research on gender equity. In recent years, AAUW has made economic security for women and families a core focus. By addressing and advocating for change in policy and employer culture and empowering individual women to negotiate for fair and equal pay, we are striving to end the gender pay gap. By joining us today, you're joining a rapidly growing community of AAUW Start Smart alumni. Welcome to the movement to close the gender pay gap. Sorry about that. Sometimes I get those two words mixed up. It's a bit of a mouthful. Sorry. No, here we go. So here's what we're going to be going over today. This workshop's organized into 4 steps. The first step is to know your value and how to articulate it. Step 2 is to know your target salary range and your benefits or benefits that you'd like to have. And you'll want to do that using objective research and data, and I will teach you how to do that. Step 3 is to know your strategy and how to be persuasive. And step 4 is to absolutely practice, 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 because only with practice will you become a great negotiator. So before we get started on the steps though, let's jump a little bit into the gender pay gap and how it affects everyone. So the reason AAUW is working to bring these negotiation workshops to communities across the US is because we have a long way to go until the gender pay gap is eliminated. It's an issue that can affect you as early as your first job and can follow you all the way into retirement. So we are bringing you these tools because we want you to feel empowered to advocate for yourselves and your own career and overcome any pay gap that you might be experiencing. So in terms of defining this, the gender pay gap is how we describe the inequality in what men and women are paid nationally. So women working full-time are currently paid 82 cents for every dollar earned by a man. Nationally, that's national data. So that's among just people who are working full-time. And if you do want more information on the formula used to calculate that, it can be found on the AAUW website. A little more of a breakdown though. The gender pay gap exists in every single line of work at every educational level and through various ages, and women of color are disproportionately affected. And so this is a breakdown of what that looks like. You can see here that Hispanic and Latina women earn only 54% of what men make in their jobs. American Indian and Alaskan Natives, 57%, 61% for Native Hawaiian and other Pacific Islander populations. Black and African American women only earn 62% of what men make. White and non-Hispanic women make 79% of what white men make, and Asian populations make 90% of what men make. So this is a pretty ridiculous problem that we are facing. The gender pay gap also affects groups, other groups, including mothers and the LGBTQ community. And there's a really wonderful document and review of all of the different groups and all of the impacts on the AAUW website as well. And it's a publication called The Simple Truth. I will encourage everyone to take a look at that maybe after our presentation today, because it's a very interesting document. But over your lifetime, these lost wages mean that women and their families have less money to support themselves, save and invest for future, pay down debt, and spend on goods and services. Families, businesses, and the economy suffer as a result. And this data is reported by the National Women's Law Center. They use a formula to estimate total losses over a 40-year career. And so that's what's being displayed up here. This is not just a woman's issue, it's an economic issue. And if the pay gap were to close tomorrow, 2.5 million children would be lifted out of poverty in the United States. So these are estimates of how women lose across a lifetime of being paid unequally. And these are just really striking numbers. So some of the causes of the gender pay gap are that women are paid less for the same work. They are overrepresented in low-wage jobs and underrepresented in high-wage jobs. They're well represented in undervalued fields such as healthcare, education, and public administration. And they're discriminated against and face barriers that result in lower pay because they're often caregivers. So before moving into the negotiation skills, we want to pause and acknowledge some stereotypes and the double bind. So does anyone know what the double bind is? Like, what does that mean? And you can either speak up or you can type answers into the chat box.
Is that the intersectionality?
Do what? The intersectionality?
Yeah, is that what the double bind is?
The double bind, so the double bind actually represents the conflicting demands that women receive around their behavior expectations, and especially at work. Women often have like two choices, either to be seen as competent or liked, and likable women are sometimes seen as incompetent. When women step outside of cultural expectations and are assertive or advocate for themselves, then they may be seen as unlikable. So that's what the double bind is. And this is a factor that can make negotiations more difficult for women. You often need to be seen as competent and liked in order to get what you want in our society. So that's kind of one of the contributing factors to the trouble that we're facing. So just curiously, what do you see as your biggest challenge in negotiating your salary and benefits?
I've just found that when I'm trying to negotiate, I tend to still be brought back down to where I started from. Like I can ask, but I don't get.
Yeah.
But I do get it later. Like I've been able to negotiate for raises after I start a job, after so many months or whatever, and they've occurred.
Yeah. But it sounds like you're not getting, the salary that you're asking for initially when you begin a job.
Correct.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like I have to prove myself first.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, that's definitely a valid feeling, and it's certainly something
Now,
that many women.
I
Go ahead.
I wanted to add to that. So that was very good that she's mentioned that. Now I'm in the medical. I want to become a neurosurgeon or orthopedic surgeon, and so my goal after undergrad is to basically go to medical school. Now I believe this is what I believe. Others might believe differently, but this is what I believe. Is that like us? Like it's different. For example, and I'm not trying to say that like doctors are better, but uh, like for example, if you wanted to become an engineer, right? Um, you might not get the salary that you want at first. But when you start the job, so your salary, let's just say you're in Texas and your salary is like 72,000 a year. You might go to another company that pays maybe $60,000 a year and tells you, okay, you just have to prove yourself first before we pay. But as doctor, like studying medicine, we prove ourselves in school. So for us, I don't think it's difficult for us to go to a hospital. And if, for example, the hospital's like, okay, we're going to pay you as a neurosurgeon 120,000, of course you would reject that because typically neurosurgeons get paid 600 to 800,000 a year. So I believe like, okay, we went through 10 years of school. We did prove ourselves through school. We went to medical school, we went to residency, we passed our boards, and now telling us, to get $100,000 is like a joke, in my respect to everybody. But that's what I believe. Like as a doctor, like that won't be an issue for me to negotiate because it will be like common sense. Like, okay, if you're gonna pay me $100,000, then I don't want to work for you because typically the average gets paid about $700,000, and I already proved myself through school. I don't need to prove myself through work. You've already done that. That's why you go through a residency program. In residency, you get paid $50,000 or $60,000, so you don't get paid high like doctors. But that's your time to prove yourself that hey, I can treat a patient, I can do whatever y'all want. That is the time that you prove yourself. That's why when you go into the real workplace, you get paid very easily. I don't know if that makes sense, but
You're on mute. I can't hear you.
oh, you didn't hear what I said?
No, I'm speaking to the speaker. She's on mute.
Chrissy, I think she was saying you were on mute.
Well, dang it. That's the second time I hit that button twice. Can everyone hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, I'm so sorry about that. I could have sworn I hit the button and it just didn't unmute me. Okay, well, I've said what I was going to say twice, and so I'm just going to skip it now because I can't get it the exact same as it came out of my mouth the first time. At any
I
rate.
actually would like to hear what your response would be, though.
Oh, sure. Oh, I was just saying that I respected the experience of the person who had shared what they were talking about, and how, your education is certainly something that speaks for your value, but also that oftentimes, especially women and women of color and minority populations, tend to have a more difficult time being able to, or being asked to prove their value when they're negotiating for their salary. And so
And sometimes education does mark that.
yeah, I'm not saying that education doesn't prove or show your value. I'm certainly saying that it does. Really, though, what we're focusing on today is just focusing on being able to have confidence in discussing your value and what it is that you bring to a company that makes you worth the salary that you're negotiating. So with that, I'll thank everyone for just speaking up and sharing their experiences. And we're going to move on to step 1 here. So step 1 is knowing your value. So the first step in preparing to negotiate is to know what you're worth. How do you confidently and articulately share the value that you bring and the contribution that you will make to your position in a way that resonates with an employer? So this does seem intuitive, but for many, this section requires some behavior change. So for many of us, we're not comfortable talking about our accomplishments. For some, there may even be cultural norms in how you were raised that make this much more difficult. So we're going to share some tools to help you all speak more confidently about your work. If I pause every now and then, it's because I'm just admitting more participants. So I apologize if it's a little bit choppy. So in your workbook, if you were able to download that, spend a couple of minutes reviewing the sample resume and job description on pages 6 and 7. And I'll just give you a little bit of an intro. The fictitious person that we're covering today, her name is Olivia Taylor, and we'll be following her through the workshop. And you want to look for her accomplishments and skills, the work experience on her resume. And then I'll ask, sort of after I let you all take a look at that, what you would articulate about her experience that you see on her resume if you were going into a salary negotiation situation. So I'll give everyone just a moment or two to take a look at that. And you can even unmute, you can either unmute and speak your answers or just put some of those in the text box or chat box. While everyone is looking at pages 6 and 7, someone asked for the workbook link again, so I'm going to bounce the presentation back to that slide just for a moment or two for those of us who came in a few minutes late and did not get to see that slide. So give me just 1 second. Here is the slide that has the link for the workbook. Also placing that link in the chat box as well. So coming back to workbook pages 6 and 7, taking a look at Olivia's resume and the job posting that is on the next page, what are some of the possible experiences that Olivia has that would line up with the job posting? So some of the things that people often see are her years of experience, her experience with overseeing client relations. I see somebody in the chat box said leadership experience, absolutely. Also, she has great communication skills, knowledge of social media, and familiarity with sports. So the idea of knowing your own brand, and we hear this a lot in social media, but we're not going to dig too deeply into doing personal branding today, but put this image up. I want to put this image up to remind you that you are your own best advocate. So no one knows you or your impact and your work as well as you do. And on the job market, you sell something that is unique, which is you. And this includes your identity, your combination of work experience, work ethic, your interests, your goals, your personality, and your education. So at this point, I want you to take a moment to ask yourself, what differentiates you? How do you bring value to your company or your organization? And what skills, accomplishments, and work experiences demonstrate value or the contributions you will make in the position that you're seeking. So I'm going to give everybody just a minute or two to think about these questions and what those answers would be for you. So as part of this, consideration of these questions, it would be helpful, especially in the future when you're putting, your resume together or anything like that. If you go ahead and write some of these ideas that you're having down. So things like as many accomplishments, contributions, skills, any relevant work experiences, anything that you can think of that you're proud of, just take a moment or two to write just a quick list of those down. Some examples could be something like finishing a big project or winning a new account, accepting an award, mastering Excel or any other program that you might often use in work. So just take a moment to write a couple of those down for yourself. So as you look at this list of your accomplishments and the things that you've done that you're proud of, the next step to kind of evaluating these are take what you wrote down and think about what you did to make those things happen. What role did you play? What were some of the positive results? And then how can you quantify it? So like these are like writing down exact numbers to support your case. For instance, today I am doing a workshop for 26 participants online. So having a number in there can be very helpful to support your case and to quantify the achievement that you were doing. Some examples of this are things like revenue and funding. You could increase in efficiency. Customer acquisition could be how you made something happen. Budget savings or employees managed, just those are different examples of that. And then we're going to put this into a statement in just a moment. So now let's talk about how to sell your achievements with value statements. And a value statement is how to share your skills and accomplishments in an objective and data-driven way. It should be tailored to the job that you're seeking as well. So, so a good example is on the screen here, and you'll just want to write how I accomplished and then list the accomplishment using my blank skills, which benefited our company by the results that you've got, that you, excuse me, I'm sorry, I'm getting jumbled up. So I accomplished, and you list your accomplishment using my skills and the skill that you used to do the accomplishment, and then which benefited our company by listing the results that happened as a result of that accomplishment. I'm sorry, that's such a jumbled up way to say that. Let me give you an example. I think that will help. So as an example, you could say, I developed a training program for new hires using my project management and leadership experience. That benefited our company by decreasing turnover by 32%, improving office culture, and saving the company an average of $22,000 a year in onboarding costs. Another example could be something like, I launch a campaign to raise awareness around sexual violence on campus using my leadership and communication skills. This led to the university strengthening its policies on sexual violence and reduced reported incidents of by 15% within the year. So this is a great formula to use to create those value statements, and it's a great way to be able to articulate your value when you're in that negotiation process. So here are just a few tips to help you be a great self-advocate. So it's really great to document your accomplishments. So if you did take a few moments earlier to write those down, go ahead and keep that document and keep that list as long as you can. I typically keep like just a notepad document on my computer for different things that I do throughout the year. And then maybe once or twice a year, I'll go into my CV and add those things so that my CV can get longer. And then if I want to apply for a job, then I've already got those things listed and updated as often as I can. It's also important to think beyond the task. So we can get into the weeds of like day-to-day stuff, but making sure that you think about how the work that you're doing fits into the big picture of, your future career and the aspirations that you have is just another good way to be able to keep track of the accomplishments that you are doing now and how they can lead you to that career that you're working toward. Quantifying your work is also always a very good strategy to have. So when you do document those accomplishments, just keep in mind to keep the data itself with the list of accomplishments. So for instance, the example I used earlier of presenting or facilitating this workshop for 26 people, if I had that number written down with my list, then I wouldn't have to go and research how many people participated in this workshop. And then remember that everything counts. So it's often that women tend to take more things like event planning and side projects around, excuse me, I'm just going to read this. Women tend to take on more things like event planning and side projects around the office. Those are things that count. Those are things that you can put on your resume and that you can use in order to accentuate your value when you are negotiating. So keep in mind that those things count and those should be on your list as well. So our next step is to prepare yourself with objective and market-based research. I think somebody had brought this up earlier that they weren't sure how to create like a salary range. And so we're going to get into that in this step. So almost all employers set salary ranges for their jobs. This means that all jobs have a worth on the market. It doesn't matter how much you earned at your first job, nor does it matter what your last salary was. Your market value is what an employer is likely to pay you in that position. And there are 6 steps for benchmarking salary and benefits. So when you're doing this, you're going to go through these 6 steps, and we'll go through each. The first one is researching and identifying comparable job titles to whichever job that you're applying to. Step 2 is find the market rate for the position and establish your target salary. 3 is use your target salary to create your target salary range. Then 4, determine your walking away point. 5, create a realistic budget. And 6, assess the value of the benefits. So like health benefits and things that come with the job. So here are some clarifying definitions for target salary range, and walk away point. So your target salary is going to be your worth based on objective market wage data. Target salary range is a range that you use to negotiate with an employer. Your target salary is the anchor per se at the bottom of the range. Your walk-away point is going to be the lowest salary that you are willing to accept and still reach agreement. It is also a tool to prevent you from accepting a salary that you may later regret or that might put you into financial instability. So going to step one, this is where we research and find comparable and aligned job titles. So you can use multiple resources for this, but use multiple resources for research that use employer reported data instead of individually reported data. Great resources for this are salary.com and payscale.com. And I will type those into the chat box real quick as well. Glassdoor and LinkedIn can be used as supplemental resources, but we recommend starting with one of the tools above or one of the salary or pay scale tools. If you know anyone at the company that you're seeking to work for or anyone in your industry, asking them for guidance on salary is also a really great way to collect data. But those websites are typically the primary place that I use to look for salary data. When using salary.com, so this is an example of what you would see if you looked up a salary on salary.com. So some companies choose to lead or lag, excuse me, let me start over and actually explain what you're looking at here. So this is a data graph that's showing you essentially the range of what people make in a particular job. And you can see on top here, it says Public Relations Specialist 1. And this is actually in relation to the workbook. So the person that we're following, Olivia, and the job that she's applying for, the public relations, this is just an example of what she might see if she were doing this research. So you're looking basically at the range of what a person makes at the lowest end and at the highest end in this job title. Some companies may choose to lag the market, so that means they're going to pay a little bit lower on the lower end, but they may provide free lunch every day or other benefits that supplement the reason for the lower salary range. Make sure to look at the full package and identify what is most important to you when you accept a position, because different companies are going to be offering different packages. So setting your target salary range, you'll want to find the salary range and establish your target salary. When setting a target salary, you want to aim for at or above the median. And so just if we go back to look at this graph here, the median is that upper point of this bell curve that's at the very top of it. That's about average what everyone makes in this field. So it's an average of the in-between. If you're reaching for a position that's slightly above your level, you don't want to undervalue yourself to be a competitive candidate. And this information is here to empower you. Identifying your target salary, with identifying your target salary, once you identify it, you can reach upwards of about 20%, and that's your range. So when you share your desired salary in a negotiation, studies actually suggest that you will be more successful if you put your target salary at the bottom of a range instead of asking for it outright. And this is giving a range suggests that you're more cooperative and flexible, and that's your target salary range. Someone asked if this is recorded. I believe it is being recorded. Let me just double check. Yes, it is being recorded. I apologize. I normally remember to make an announcement about that beforehand. So I'm so sorry about that. At this point forward, if anyone would prefer to keep their camera off or anything like that, because this is being recorded, just go ahead and turn off your camera or your voice. My apologies. I do normally tend to say that. Let me jump back in here. Thank you, by the way, for the person who asked that question. Okay, a smaller range can be more appropriate, particularly if you're entry level or like a mid-level in your career. But we don't recommend exceeding that 20% range. So for example, if your target salary is around 50,000, you can set your range between 50 and 60,000. If you're seeking a salary closer to the 75th percentile, which would be that further range on the right-hand side, Do not let this information discourage you. Use your value statement and build a case for what differentiates you and why you deserve that higher range. So just because, you know, fewer people are making that 75th percentile salary does not mean that you're not worth that amount. And if that's what you want, all you have to do is use the skills that we've already discussed so far to validate the reason why you're asking for that higher range of salary. So your next step is to determine your walkaway point. Identifying a walkaway point prevents you from accepting an offer that you may later regret, and it can be informed by your budget and your personal situation. It should not be much lower than your target salary, and you should make sure that you have a comprehensive budget to match it up against to ensure that you're not putting yourself in a financially insecure situation. Step 5 is creating that realistic budget, and that way we can determine that walkaway point. Knowing your personal budget can absolutely prepare you to negotiate and confirm if your target salary is an appropriate target. So it's also a good idea to estimate your monthly take-home pay after taxes and other deductions. So that would be one of your first steps. And if you find your budget is greater than your target salary, then you can re-examine your budget to reduce expenses or to assess whether the job is a realistic fit for your needs. Remember to set your salary targets based on objective data, so things like from salary.com. Your budget can certainly inform your goals, but it should not be a reason to increase your target salary outside of a range that you can objectively justify. On the other hand, having a budget below your target salary range doesn't also mean that you should decrease what you're willing to accept either. Excuse me. So step number 6, factoring in the value of benefits as well. So benefits are just as important as your salary, and they are also negotiable. A lot of people don't realize that. Certain benefits like health insurance or vacation are usually standard for all employees, but some can be negotiated. So rather than asking for more of everything, focus on what's most important to you. So giving your benefits the same objective analysis as your salary. Ask which benefits are typically offered. If possible, talk to people who work at the company where you're interviewing and consider what's valuable to you and whether you should negotiate for anything other than your salary. And this is just a list of some of the benefits that are often offered or that you could negotiate for when you're doing your negotiation. So negotiation step 3 is to know your strategy. So up to this point, we've discussed tactics to be data-driven and highly objective during negotiations. For the rest of this workshop, we're actually going to focus on ways to become highly strategic and highly persuasive. And first, negotiation should not start until an offer has been made. So that's definitely a main thing that you're going to want to remember. That negotiation is not part of the application or the interview process. It's only after an offer has been made that you should begin your negotiation process. So some tips for entering this negotiation phase. Excuse me. Bringing your notes into your negotiation is going to be helpful for you. Remaining positive and flexible will also be helpful just for the interpersonal relationship that you'll have with the employer. Remember that negotiation isn't a battle, it's more of a conversation. And try not to take anything personal. Anticipate your employer's reactions and responses if you can. And then remember that the employer has picked you. They have made an offer to you for this position, and they want to make it work with you. So that's something that you have on your side when you go into negotiating. There are typically several conversations before concluding the negotiation. As each party considers the requests, the offers, counter offers, there's going to be a back and forth in this process. And so just remember to remain positive and flexible throughout. If you get to a point at which you feel like you need time on your own to consider an offer, you absolutely have the right to ask for that. So don't be afraid to ask just for some time to consider the offer. That's absolutely okay. In the application stage and during the interview, you may be asked about your salary history or salary expectations. This is something that employers sometimes can do depending on the state that you live in. But it can be illegal in some states as well. I did look this up before presenting today, and unfortunately, Texas does not prohibit employers from asking salary history. So I'm going to give you a couple of other ways of deflecting answering this question. So generally, researchers have found that the salary history question in the hiring process is one of the most pervasive reasons that the gender pay gap still exists. Some cities and states do prohibit employers from asking. In online applications, you can try to leave these fields blank if you can. If you can't leave the fields blank, you can write 0 or NA. And if the field requires like a figure for you to put a number in there, you can always put in what your target salary or target salary range is. You can also try to get your employer to share their target range first. So you can ask like what they've budgeted for the position. And we'll go over a little bit more specifically some other examples here. So if you're getting asked this question, here's some more specific examples that you can use. If someone asks you your salary history, you can say, this position's not exactly the same as my last job, and that's going to be pretty much the same for every new position that you apply for. And you want to say something like, I'd like to discuss what my responsibilities would be here, and then determine a fair salary for the job. You can also say something like, I'd appreciate it if you could make an offer based on whatever you have budgeted for the position, as I said earlier. Or you can say something like, my salary history and expectations are in line with my professional achievements and experience and with the requirements of this position. So these are just some ways to deflect answering that question directly. Here are a couple more. If the employer asks salary expectations or what your desired salary is before you're in that phase, you can say something like, I'd like to see if I'm a good fit for this position before we discuss salary. Excuse me. Or I'd like to learn more about the role before I set my salary expectations. As we move forward in the interview process, I expect that my salary would line up with market rates for similar positions. Or you can say something like, I'd appreciate it if you made me an offer based on what you budgeted for the role, and then we can go from there. So these are just in case an employer asks you this during the application or interview phase. These are ways that you can deflect answering that question. So let's say that you did get the job and you got your offer, and it's either at or above your target salary. That's fantastic. But you still want to review the overall compensation package and decide whether or not that you want to negotiate further or focus on benefit negotiation. But usually you'll want to negotiate because it is expected. Make sure that you can clearly spell out the value that you're bringing in when you do so. If you get an offer below your target salary, though, you should attempt to negotiate as well. Also consider what benefits may bridge the gap and make the offer more acceptable. If you cannot negotiate above your walkaway point, then you might need to consider whether this job is a good fit for you or not. And I know that's always a difficult decision to make, but just in terms of knowing your value, you'll need to be able to set that walkaway point and stand firm to it as well. So an important part of negotiating is learning to respond persuasively. So before entering a negotiation, you should anticipate 3 to 5 different ways that an HR rep or manager might respond to your requests and be ready with ways to respond to or overcome their objections. This is a great place to leverage benefits if an employer is unable to meet you at your target salary as well. So, excuse me just one second. So if the employer says, excuse me, I'm sorry, I keep getting distracted by added guests. So if an employer says to you, I don't have the budget for this high of a salary, and they're telling you that this is their reason for not being able to give you the salary that you want, some things that you can say in response to that are, if this is the case, would you be open to working together to identify ways to cover this salary this year or to plan for increased funds next year? There's a couple other examples on here. I'm not going to read them word for word. I feel like I've been talking a lot, and you might, when I am in presentations and somebody's just reading off a slide, I get frustrated. So I'll give y'all just a moment to read the other two. But these are some really great examples of what you can say. So if an employer comes to you and says that in the future you'll have opportunities for growth, these are some of the responses that you can come back with. And then also some employers might say something like, we can do this, but it'll have to wait until next year. And so like another response is thanking you for their support, but you don't want to continue to align value with the needs of the organization. Can we check in again in 6 months or something like that? So after negotiating your salary, you should consider negotiating for the benefits. So ask the employer, ask if the employer offers benefits that you value, such as professional development, support, or flex time. Oh, sorry. Went ahead of myself there. Negotiating benefits is one approach to making a low salary offer more acceptable. It's also a way to maximize your value during a negotiation as well. So when you're negotiating for a raise or a promotion, you can also negotiate for better benefits as well. A lot of people don't know that. Since you're already working at the company, you will have a better sense of what might be negotiable and can prepare accordingly. And then this is just another list of those benefits that we looked at earlier of things that you can negotiate for. There's also a list of these on page 15 and 16 in your workbook. So moving forward, as you give verbal acceptance for your offer letter in the negotiation, be sure to ask for the offer in writing and read it carefully before signing to make sure everything you discussed is included. You just want to make sure that everything that you talked about in that negotiation process is going to be in that offer letter so that you have documentation to back up and that you are able to get what is expected from that negotiation as well. You will also need to negotiate throughout your entire career. So this is something that can be useful to you over and over again. Keeping your portfolio up to date and remembering the salary negotiation steps are always going to be helpful for you. And then just also practicing. So practicing is the fourth step. Practice, practice, practice. You're going to have to do this over and over again throughout your entire career. And getting comfortable making your requests out loud and responding to possible objections will increase your confidence and comfort level before entering your negotiation process. There are role play worksheets included in your workbook, and you can use those to practice with a friend or family member. And we definitely recommend that you run through these exercises at least a few times before you enter any professional negotiations for salary. So just to summarize here, we went through this pretty quickly and I know it was a lot of information, but the 4 steps that we covered today were know your value, know your target salary and benefits, knowing your strategy, and practice, practice, practice. So that kind of wraps us up here. I do also just want to let everyone know that we do also offer this workshop for free online, so you can review it as a refresher anytime. You can also download and or save the workbook and refer back to that when needed. Again, if you did not get the workbook or you didn't see that link earlier, I'd be happy to email that to you, and I've put my email in the chat box, so just search up for that. And that's going to pretty much wrap up the presentation, but I'll go ahead and open it up open up this space for some time if anyone has questions. I'd be happy to try and help you answer those. So I'll just give everyone, and you can type your questions in the chat box. I'm actually going to go up and search and see if I missed any questions as I was talking. And then you can also just speak up as well, but I'm going to look at our chat real quick and see if there's anything that came up. Thank you to those of you who mentioned that I was on mute at that moment. I appreciate that. I'll go ahead and share that link to the workbook one more time, just for anyone who didn't grab it.
Just a quick question. Can we use the mic for questions or? do
Yeah,
we have to-
absolutely. Yes.
Okay, just because it's long, I don't want to. But the website that you gave me, the salary.com, very perfect. It's something that I'm gonna use, and then my cousin's gonna use for his career. So that's very good. Always when we Google up the salary,
Mhm.
it might give you the salary, but it does definitely not gonna give you the benefit. So
Yeah.
here it actually gives you the benefit. But I had some questions on I typed neurosurgery in,
Sure.
and some of the benefits were, so I had questions on what is the Social Security. Like for Social Security, it says that you get $18,034, and
Okay.
then for um, disability, it says $10,130, and for healthcare, it says $6,371, and then for pension, it says $10,500. So what does those vocabulary mean?
That's a great question. I'm not sure I have the knowledge to answer the specific breakdown of benefits for that company. There should be an HR person that you can reach out to if that's a specific offer that you've received. Am I correct in understanding that?
What did you say? I'm sorry.
Is this an offer that you've received an offer and you're reading the list of benefits? Is that what you're?
No. This is just I didn't receive it off. This is just on the salary.com website.
Oh, and there's no definitions on salary.com that explain?
What the Social Security. So if you're getting $18,034 under Social Security and a pension of $10,500,
Mhm.
what does that mean? I mean, I just Googled up a salary on there, and it
Sure.
gave me the benefit.
Yeah, I'm really sorry. I'm not sure that I have enough information to answer your question, but if you would like to maybe email me what specific link that you're looking at, maybe I can take a closer look at it.
Salary.com.
Okay. Let's see. Somebody also asked if I had the PowerPoint to share. I would be happy to share the PowerPoint with you. And also all of this information is also going to be in the workbook download as well. I just put my email into the chat box again. So if anyone wants the PowerPoint for today's presentation, just shoot me a quick email and I'd be happy to send that to you. Okay. In terms of a copy of the recording, so the Career Connection Center typically uploads all of our recorded sessions onto our YouTube page. So I will need to double check about when that will happen, but it will happen in the future. And I do believe actually there's a previous recording of the same exact workshop done by one of my colleagues already up online. So pretty much the same exact information is going to be up in one of those videos online already. If you give me just 1 second, I will actually get you the link to that. Let me do that real quick. Here we go. Okay, here is a link to the YouTube video of the previous session that we had recorded. Okay, I'm not seeing any other questions in the chat. I'll go ahead and leave it open for more questions, and I'll stick around for a few more minutes, but I would also just like to invite you all, if you have time, if you'll take our 2-minute survey just to give us some feedback about the workshop today. That's also always very helpful in helping us to develop better experiences for you all and for students in the future. So I'd very much appreciate it if you could take a couple minutes to do that. And otherwise, I'm just going to hang out here for a few more minutes if anyone else has any questions, and then I will wrap us up for today. A question was asked if I can send the YouTube to an email address. If you email me, then I will have your email address and I can send it back to you. Otherwise, if I don't have your email address, I can't send it to you. But I put my email in there one more time.
Thank you very much. Have a good day.
Thanks, you too. Hi, Jessica. I see that I see your question here. It's going to be a little bit difficult for me to keep track if everyone gives me their emails, but if you email me, that would be super helpful, and I'd be happy to send you the link to the YouTube or whatever it is that you'd like. Thank you so much, Jessica.
Thank you so much, Chrissy.
Thanks. Okay, it looks like most everyone's leaving, so I'll go ahead and close us out for today. Thank you again to everyone who participated and who joined us today. Hope you have a wonderful evening. Bye-bye.